AU test. It's the discussion, roadmap, ownership, things like that. So I think this is more of a discussion topic. Did anybody have anything to present? I had some like talking points, but I don't really have much of a presentation.
Is Newbury here?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, you could have asked me. I could have put some stuff together on this.
It's okay. It's
okay.
I mean, I mean, if you wanted to, it's okay. It was just going to be more of like a discussion and stuff like that.
Sure.
I would like to lead off by saying I think AU test has been a huge boon in terms of detecting problems and preventing problems and whatnot. But that doesn't mean it couldn't use quite a bit of polishing and fix-up, right?
No, I agree. In fact, I have I got some fixes to get pushed in. As you know, Alan, and some people may know, I've been working really hard on trying to get the documentation updated, but I keep getting sidetracked with, more high-level work issues, so I can't always put the effort into it that I want. I do have some updates to deal with timeouts, and I think there's some work going on. Alan, I think we'll start pushing it with Will to try to get some better code into potentially ATS so we can do better testing of when we're ready for a certain state, such as did traffic control actually, push that information and has it been processed by traffic server?
Yeah,
right now we have a lot of time being wasted in testing because we have to wait 15 to 30 seconds because traffic server says, oh, sure, maybe a setting saying I should update every second, but it still takes 15 seconds before it responds.
Yeah, well, the one thing we talked about for that we think would be really helpful, Susan and I talked about this quite a lot, is I want to wait until this file has this string in it this many times. That would solve about at least half these problems.
Right, and I know, I think that's actually something that's come up, and I think we have a lot of the building blocks in the core AU test for this. We can definitely prototype this straight in the extensions.
Well, I'm gonna go to the lathe question right off. Who's gonna own it?
Yeah.
I mean, we have hacky things to do it now. The when statements against, set up another microserver just cause, and that kind of delays then that test case from going until S&I reload has happened.
But we need a way to say overall in AU test, just wait. I don't need to know the process. I need you, AU test, to wait until this condition is true.
Right. And so I guess what I'm trying to go with this is that I think right now our current blocker, or one of the current problems that our first pass of this whole thing was to say, we're going to wait for a port state. If ATS is open and these ports are open or, ready in some form, we can continue going forward. However, I think it's been seen that that doesn't work nearly as well as we had hoped it would. For example, traffic manager would come up. It would say, I have these ports. And from our point of view of saying, are they ready or are they open? It passes, it says, yeah, this is the case. They're there, but we're still waiting for traffic server to be started up from traffic manager and all that stuff to be bootstrapped properly. So that test is bogus. I think we had an internal discussion inside, Verizon side saying, is the better test maybe to test for diagnostic logs? And
yes,
this exactly goes down what you were just saying, is that I think it would be much more prevalent for us to be able to say, and we could potentially improve the quality of most of the tests by just changing the default test to say, is diagnostic log file, does it exist on disk, and does it contain this message saying that I am in the state that we are ready to actually take traffic?
Yeah, well, this is the jumping off point for the discussion I had with Susan on the executive topic, and our view is that the when we describe handles this case well, plus handles a lot of other cases. So that's really, if we're going to build one thing, we want to build that.
Right, but I guess where I'm trying to go with this is that this also requires us to have a message that traffic server outputs, right?
Yeah, it does.
This is what we do on ATC is we just check for it cache enabled in Diax.
Yeah.
That's what we go by to know it's up and running.
Right. Well, that's why we want the general facility to say, here's the file, here's the string, here's how many times I want to see it.
Yeah. I think you need to specify the string because, if you don't have cache turned on, then I presume that you're going to be looking for a different message. But cache enabled.
But then, I mean, the other problem you had where you're doing the TLS thing, you want to do this on some other file to watch for this PEM thing to show up or whatnot or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
or to look
so-
for the reload
oh,
case.
My
Done.
general preference is we have a general facility that's relatively straightforward. I think this is straightforward, that then can be used in all these various situations. But we need someone to actually code it. Will? Will?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to help whoever wants to help get it in. And if it looks like we can make it general purpose enough, we should add it to AU Test Core.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking into adding it to AU Test. Actually, I just haven't gotten around. We just talked about it, I think, on Friday. I haven't gotten to it yet.
But I think one thing also in
Yeah.
test, just in general, we don't really have like an owner to make sure that it's still like running properly, that it's working. I mean, just recently, before I went on vacation, ATS broke, and it was broken, for the 2 weeks I was on vacation and the week I got back. And, I think we just got it green on ATS, on 90X like yesterday. So
Yeah, but
it's
so
like-
I guess the question is that when we say for owner of, because I'm owning the engine, right? And I
Yeah.
don't think I've
I
done
think
anything.
there's different owners.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's people responsible for like care and feeding, right? So making sure the tests continue to run, maybe refactoring them periodically, maybe working with the community to say, oh, hey, you've done a dozen TLS tests, I've done a dozen TLS tests, maybe they're similar.
Well, it's similar to a release manager. You have a test.
Yeah, I that's how I feel too. I think having someone to go to and just ask a question like, hey, I need to add this check for stale while revalidate or whatever, right? Where do I put this test? And today there's really none who sort of provides that. Ownership is not even the right, like leadership, right?
Yeah.
Like who here is sort of herding the cats like the release managers do for all other things. And I think we need a cat herder for AU Test too.
Yeah.
No, not the engine. We know Jason does that. The engine is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to cat herd more. I just haven't had the cycles, unfortunately.
And I
And,
understand that, but
and I think I would more happy to help with the herding, but I think we need to have someone else who maybe has more cycles to do this.
and that's the expectation to the cat herder. Just because you are the owner, I'm using owner freely here, right? Because that's not the way Apache works. But the owner here doesn't do all the work. The owner here makes sure that people gets the help they need, plus can distribute and ask help from other people, right? Let's say something specific to AU Test, he or she would know to go to Jason to say, hey, we need to add this feature to AU Test, the core, or it's just AU, right? What it's called? AU?
Well, I call it AU Test, but I mean, the long name is Reusable Goal Testing System, but that's a legal
Right,
thing. You can tell,
So more, it's not manager either, right? It's just sort of just, at Apple, they call them DRI, directly responsible individuals, someone who sort of makes sure that shit actually gets done.
Would this be that kind of discussion be reasonable to put onto the mailing list? Like, we don't really use our mailing list very often. We use Slack a lot, but then Slack kind of requires more real. I mean, not entirely real time, but if somebody is not paying attention to Slack, maybe they'll have more time to handle a more asynchronous email.
Maybe. I mean, along with this, though, I think like with the herding, one of the issues that I think we have here, and because I'm going to be taking more cycles, hopefully here soon to take a look at this in more detail. Even for me right now, when I run master locally, I have about 50% failure rate. I know our CI supposedly is passing, but I'm not seeing it. So
Yeah.
I have concerns about why that's happening.
Yeah, that's yeah. I see it. Well, we're running CentOS 7. I think that there's some issues between different platforms and stuff like that. I run Fedora 32. I see 5 failures.
Yeah, and I'm running Ubuntu like a 2020 and a WSL right now at the moment, and I'm seeing like 30 failures. I just haven't had time to fall back on why that's happening.
Yeah.
However, we've had these issues, and and it's just because we're trying to get things done. Along with what we started off saying, we need some better mechanisms to make traffic server more testable, and then we need to make sure we have the support code in our extensions or in the core of AU Test to make it so we can tie this stuff together, knowing that can we go forward? Is something ready? Are we at the state? Make things more testable. We have these cases where, oh, well, we have this test that's failing, but it looks like it's just random. And it's really hard to figure out what's going on. And unfortunately, some of those take a lot of cycles to sort of figure out why it's happening. So we just sort of like well, we'll let it go through. We're not going to worry about it. But then this stuff adds up. And I think we had an add up that we are all trying to deal with, in the last week or two, where we have a bunch of tests that are failing, but then people sort of like, do we trust AUTest? Or do we just let it go through because, oh, it's a false positive or false negative, we don't know which, and then just go forward. And then, like I said, technical debt adds up. And I think that causes concern. If we don't trust testing to do things right, then I think we make things worse for ourselves. And I'm trying to be honest to say that a lot of times I feel that I think, I'm not saying AUTest hasn't had hiccups in the past, because I know Derek in the past had come back and he actually found a real bug in AUTest that we addressed. But most of the time I see is we have these sort of asynchronous issues inside traffic server that are causing these failures to happen, or maybe some other technical detail. And since we don't know what that is, we get these sort of random failures and we just sort of go forward with it. But I think when these things are happening, we should be, I feel we should be more concerned about it. Because even though it looks like maybe it's okay in production, but I think these leads to these issues where, oh, well, Apple's having an issue and they don't want to go to 9 because they're seeing a failure, but maybe it's somehow related to one of these sort of transient failures we're getting an AUTest. We have no way of saying that's a true or false statement.
Why do you say that it's not a problem in production? Because asynchronous things happen in traffic server, even in production, right? So those things always happen.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have these cases and they're hard to solve, but we let them go. We let them go by.
I think the most recent one was the TLS verify, and I think you and Brian tracked that down to port reuse issues within microservers. So, but yeah, we had been, I was guilty of that too. Like, I really need to get this done. I'll just hit CI approve AUTest again, and whoop, it made it that time.
But to be totally
it's an easy trap to fall into.
To be blunt though, and this is again not blaming anyone, this is a joint effort, but AUTest has been so unreliable or unstable in that it reports things constantly, and the only reaction to those failures is to type approve CI AUTest, right? No one assumes that it's actually a bug in the PER. The first assumption is that it's just AUTest being flaky as usual, and I'm gonna keep clicking this until it actually passes the test. And clearly that's not a good position to be in, because it should be, if AUTest should fail so rarely that when it does fail, it should be, holy shit, I fucked something up here.
Right, and I guess my point of view and my stance is that AUTest, nothing that I've seen with these flaky tests has been AUTest being flaky. Being AUTest itself, the program, right?
I get that.
Right, I mean, it's an issue with traffic server, but again, this is what I'm talking about. There's things we need to do to make it easier to test traffic server, and we have to address some of these sort of transient race issues we have that are non-trivial to solve in traffic server, because we can sort of say, well, we can go by with it, but these are actually the reasons why we see the flakiness.
Well, the flakiness in the last one you were saying was the microserver. I mean, that's,
well,
it
was. I don't think we have full confidence that that's the case yet.
Okay.
I haven't seen that one fail yet, though. So I'm hopeful.
How do we fix this in traffic server? I don't understand why we think it's a problem in traffic server and then.
Well, I think that's what I'm arguing right now is the first step we need to do is we need to make sure that what I'm proposing, I guess, at the first round is that a number of these tests are failing because we have like delay start. If any of our tests have a delay start in it, where we say delay start 15 seconds, those are all signs that we have a problem in our testing. And we need to have a strong mechanism where traffic server says, this is the state I'm at, and the test can go forward. Because those tests were failing because we're in a race condition with trying to figure out, did traffic server actually process this? We don't know. AUTest has no way of taking it. The humans don't.
That would be an excellent kind of thing. And I've gone through periodically and tried to get rid of delays. But for kind of this community maybe of people who are kind of refactoring and you know, doing care and feeding of periodically reviewing, maybe not the whole thing, but maybe a certain area, say, can we get, why is this delay 15 or delay 10 in there? And try to get rid of it. Those all make me feel really anxious.
This is a feeling that having a responsible person would help with that, I think.
Yeah.
like someone who would actually look at this and say, well, shit, these tests are getting out of control. We have too many of them. They all doing like sleep 30 at the beginning of the tests, which means now the tests are taking like 30 minutes instead of 5 minutes. And we need to refactor this. We need to add new features to traffic server to do this signaling mechanism and so on and so forth. And that person would look at these things, right, and file issues and talk in Slack channel and emailing list and say, hey, can someone please help us work on adding this particular feature to traffic server, because then we can make AU test 10 times faster.
Also, he should be able to say, I need you to document the test. What exactly does this test do and how does it do it? There's a lot of tests you look at and it's just pure code. It's like, well.
Or it's cut and pasted with old comments.
Sure. I mean, there's some test cleanup we need to do, and there is some copy paste stuff that's going on where people came up with something, they're not showing what's going on, so they copy paste something, put it out there. This is a natural pattern that happens with all this stuff. It's not unexpected for me to see this happen in our testing, and we've made random passes in the past to do cleanup. I feel it's overdue for me to try to go in and help with that. I think Brian has come in and helped a bit with it as well. I definitely feel that as a community, we could do a better job. Will be aggressive at trying to do anything I can do to help with it all. And, you know, so I want to help. And it's just right now, we all are busy trying to do stuff. So, but yeah, I think right now there's a lot of low hanging fruits we could do to, one, make the test more reliable, and then lower the total time taken, because we can, as Leif pointed out, that delay start adds minutes, I mean, tens to 20 of minutes to our total test time.
Well,
and
if you want a hackathon, Leif.
I think, oops, am I muted?
No.
Okay. I think we should start off sort of like, see if we can get some people or one person or a couple of people to sort of be voluntold here to become this direct responsible individual. Someone can help drive these efforts like the release managers do, because I think that's where we need to start and come up with a plan, and then we can do a hackathon from those plans.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Okay, pass around virtual straws?
I think VJ wants to volunteer.
Okay.
Thanks, VJ.
Yeah.
You're the best.
Yeah, maybe Mira, my team, maybe she's interested, so she can actually work on that. She can start looking into it. But I would actually want her to start with understanding internals of it.
Well,
because
she should absolutely feel free to bug me, to bug Jason, or to bug Newbury.
Yeah.
Yeah, bug me. I mean,
we're here to help. Tell her, do not hesitate.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
we can see them in the Slack channel. We can set up meetings. We can talk about whatever we need to about how the whole setup works. So
There's a couple things I want to talk about too. Is reduce the number of skip tests. We have a lot of tests that are written, but we're skipping them right now. Or I shouldn't say a lot, a few. And a lot of that is because of OpenSSL versions. I think if we switch to testing with OpenSSL 1.1.1, we'd actually pull in a lot more tests.
Our PRs test with 1.1.1.
Our PRs test with 1.1.1. Our branches don't test with 1.1.1. So it's, yeah.
So actually, that's a good, interesting question, because I know for myself internally, one of the things I'm trying to get set up for, like inside Verizon, is a number of test pass runs with AU test. But more importantly, there was a notion of testing traffic server with OpenSSL 2.0 or whatever the next major drop's going to be, just sort of keep an eye on it. And ideally, there'll be tests added for that, and there will be tests that'll be skipped because they need 2.0 features, not 1.1 features. And likewise, we have tests today that are skipped because they need a certain 1.02 feature that's not in 1.01, right? I know we still have people using OpenSSL 1.0 something in production. Not everyone's moved to 1.1.1, right? But we have those type of cases where, you know, we have traffic server with OpenSSL 1.0 and 1.1, and then there'll be a traffic server 2.0. I mean, there's going to be tests that are going to be skipped because of that.
Yeah, but I think when we run in CI, we should set up an environment where we're running as many tests as we possibly can. CI needs to go ahead and exercise. I mean, if we're writing the tests, we should be exercising the tests.
Sure. So I know one thing that I have, and it's only partially implemented because, again, lack of cycles on my end. I was adding a feature into the core that Leif wanted, which is to say that I want to, let's say, I hate to use the word now with the political thing, whitelist or blacklist things, but basically do run or don't run these tests. So we could say, you know, when running in our CI, we would prevent these tests from being viewed as candidates to run. So we could say all these tests that would be normally skipped because they need OpenSSL 111, we can just say, don't run them.
Yep.
And therefore they would not be seen as skipped. And then likewise, this also gave us the ability that I believe Leif had requested to say, I just want to be able to maybe run in CI these tests as a set of sanity tests to keep things quicker. And then you would have a longer test run for something else. Not that we would or wouldn't do that, but you know, having those options is a very powerful thing to have. And it sounds like that feature may be something I should elevate because then we can say that when we're running tests in our CI, we can just turn these tests off and you don't see them as being skipped. My only concern with that is the reason why I had tests being reported as skipped was because that makes notes that they're technical debt that we probably want to address at some point. But being not seen because it just doesn't make sense to run this test ever on Fedora because you're running 111 on this version, or you're running CentOS, so you would never maybe run the 111 tests, seems to be a reasonable thing as well.
The other thing
Correct.
is, the other thing I had a talking point was the C and C++ code. So we're starting to get more of that in Autest. However, it's not being built with the build system. There's been problems with like Clang Analyzer. I mean, on it, I don't think the code really I don't know if it compiles on all platforms, things like that.
So is that Autest or just us testing our automake?
Yeah.
That
No,
is I think using automake to go ahead and build the code that's under Autest, or sorry, under the tests directory.
You're kind of talking about these like little one-off utilities, right?
Yeah, we have like plugins. We have some things like that that are under there. I think all that should be integrated into the our build system.
Yeah.
I think I did file an internal Jira on that too. Okay, I guess there's no objections to that.
I have no objections. If we want to have all the test bits that we need for Autest to call pre-built, that seems fine.
Yeah. I think, Leif, I know you've been resistant to this as Docker. Should we have like Docker images for this? So that way people can even download the Docker image and run Autest locally. That's basically the same thing as setup for CI.
All the CI Docker images are available to download. Anyone can do that. Those are, I sent the email numerous times on that.
But we don't use Docker for.
We don't use Docker for Autest right now.
Yeah.
That's deliberate because it's complicated. It's a long story, but I blame Stephen for that. But they had to donate machines now, didn't they? But they did, and then connecting GoDaddy VMs to our Rackspace VMs using Docker remotely and all that stuff got complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to mess with that until we're going to redo the whole CI at some point. So long term, we're going to move all of CI over to GoDaddy. And Stephen again has scrunched up a ton of hardware for us, which is great, but it's a lot of effort. And long story short, right now we run Autest on the native boxes on GoDaddy without Docker. And but we could totally make a Docker image that looks like this. Those are regular CentOS 7 images, so it would not be difficult to set up a Docker image that looks like that. I can totally do that if that would help anyone.
Yeah, and I have some stuff as well, and I could try to do more to share some of the stuff. But just as an FYI, I mean, I don't have any strong data, and I mentioned this internally. I have a concern at this time that I need to go test and validate better, but I get a feeling that when I run Autest on native hardware, like on bare metal, like this on CentOS, right, I get a different set of potential failures that are consistent when I run in bare metal versus when I run it in a Docker container. And I am not sure if it's a kernel issue with Docker or if there's some other behaviors going on. I have done a lot of settings with, making sure IPv6, all this other stuff is set up. But one of my things that I had as a goal for myself for our own internal stuff that once I figure it out, we'll share it, is that I want to get a big test matrix to sort of validate that is Docker, depending on the kernel it's running on or the OS it's running on, causing pain or failures that we're sensitive to that we may not be aware of. So I'm not convinced at the moment just saying running tests inside traffic server and a Docker container for some user space is going to show us stuff that we expect to see. It may be related to the operating system kernel that we're running under, may have effect, but I don't have data to show one way or the other. I just know that when I run in a Docker container or even WSL or these other things, I get different sets of failures that are consistent for that platform that are different than when I maybe run that same operating system on a bare metal system.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to, when you're saying you're running Ubuntu, you're getting failures. I run Fedora 32, I get failures. We run CI on CentOS 7, there's no failures. It's like, I think we need to get better understanding of what's going on there. And
but you were saying just the operating system differences. I'm saying something as simple as I'm running Ubuntu on bare metal Docker, or I'm running it on my Mac Docker, of the same Ubuntu image, and I get completely different set of failures. I'm sort of like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, I think we need to understand why these things are happening. So.
Right. So my goal again was I need to set up a massive test matrix given our built infrastructure that we have with our screwdriver stuff internally, so I can get a better picture of what's going on and then make hopefully a more objective data statement based on that.
Yep.
Just FYI, as far as I know, Stephen can correct me, but the GoDaddy machines, even though they are bare metal, they still run a virtualization because they do that for their sort of cloud maintenance and administration, so they can reclone them without complexity. So they already are running inside a VM.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be Docker on top of a VM.
Single tenant, it's basically a single tenant VM. And there's a long story that goes behind that where were customers that were hosing their machines and expected us to be able to get into their machines. And if we didn't have a backdoor into their machine, we couldn't do anything about it. So that's why we went to the single tenant VM. So let's quit breaking stuff.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I mean, I'm pleased as punch that you got all these machines, Stephen, and we are going to move it. So what's going to happen is that Rackspace essentially is going to cancel the support for the CI, the freebie. So we do need to get off of Rackspace in about a year, less than a year. And that's why I didn't want to do any major re-architecture changes in the current CI. Rather, we're going to rebuild the whole CI from scratch using Jenkins 2's pipelines from the get-go. And the background of that is that the stuff that we have set up today was built on Jenkins 1, which didn't have pipelines. And I sort of fudged that by having this little shell script that looks like pipelines. And now we get through pipelines, and doing a migration is just going to be a pain in the ass. So I'd rather start from scratch, to be honest. Yeah. So that's the current plan, what we're going to do. And obviously Autest will be a significant part of that. We can probably, so Stephen got so much machines for us, we can probably do more Autest, like running under ASON and TSON and all those things that we sort of been wanting to do.
Yeah, debug builds.
Now we have unlimited resources, thanks to Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen. You're the best.
How many boxes or how many VMs do we have? Or
well, they really are single tenant boxes. Yep. As we get the bare metal, I think, I don't remember, Steve, what if we have 8 now, I think 8 or 9 now, and I think you gave us another 16.
Yeah, I think there's about 24 8-core instances or yeah, there's a lot of compute out there.
Okay.
And that honestly too could be something that if we get a responsible individual to do a Autest, we can maybe move some of these CI ownership over to that person too. And I would like that, but I'll certainly be there to help, but it would be nice to have someone else helping out there too.
Okay, so I think we'll take a 15-minute break if nobody has anything else for AU test, and then we'll come back. So 15 minutes from now would be, I don't know, 10:35 my time, 10:36. Sounds good?
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
see you in 15.
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I don't know if Leif is back yet. Thinking about that position, I'm potentially interested in it. I'm a little shy to commit to a position I hadn't heard about until a few minutes ago. Maybe that would be something good to have in the ATS dev mailing list. I don't know.
You mean taking over the AU
Yeah,
test
doing the
stuff?
shepherding of AU test.
Okay.
I am interested in AU test. I feel, I do have interest in about our test coverage, and I appreciate what AU test has done, but I didn't know whether that would be a good fit for me or not.
You've been really helpful with making improvements, so.
Thanks. And the advantage is I have worked closely with Jason too, and we're in the same organization, so there could be some benefit there as well. If he's always supported me in the stuff I need to do, so maybe that would be a good position for me to take on.
Okay.
And I'm more than happy also to welcome another steward to the actual code itself. I mean, the AU test is code, right?
Mm.
I mean, I think it would be wise to have AU test to have another PIP owner, besides myself, in case something goes wrong.
Right, yeah. And this watch condition would be a good place for me to start with that. Or that the when condition on the content of a file.
Has there been any work done on the parallelization of AU test, or?
I made a first couple stabs at it, but again, like everything else in my life here right now, it's like I can't work on the stuff I want to because I have to work on stuff that I have to.
Yeah. Is that going to be difficult to do or not?
There's a couple of tricks to deal with it, but I have a general plan and flow for that. But it's definitely something I really want to get done myself because even because our build, like our internal build using the Wisconsin parts code, parts has a lot of tests on it, and I want that to be faster myself. When you start getting a couple hundred tests and stuff, you want the hum faster,
Peter, that is a very cute dog.
So I have another wish list thing for AU test, and feature-wise, or maybe this is an example, is so we at Apple we use cache hierarchies, parent configs a ton, right? And so we don't have a single AU test that has an example of using parents. And so like there are, and we do find issues. We have found issues in the past. VJ tracked down a consistent hash bug the other month. And there's various parent scenarios that probably exercise different parts of the code. I know Mr. Rushford is working on completely changing APIs, and so either having an example of a test that could use parents, or
hey Miles,
such that
Miles, you need to bug Aaron over here.
Yeah, I was going to actually just mention that because this is a scenario where
he's done carp testing. So he set up a carp cluster in AU test and ran tests against it.
Yeah, I literally think he has a test with carp that runs like 50 traffic server cases.
It was like 8.
It sounded like more at one point.
Yeah,
he scaled it back, but yeah.
Yeah, I had
not a lot of difference between carp and parent selection in terms of AU test setup.
This was tested really well last September, and then I don't know what happened. Something broke, and all of our carp tests have not run properly since then.
And that's those are all internal changes, yes. Right?
Yeah, like we have internal plugins.
Yeah, but there was nothing in AU test that was special to make the tests, to write the tests. It was just like you were saying, having a nice example to say what a test might look like to run more than one case of traffic server.
Yeah, exactly, because like you mentioned before, there's the copy paste. We can kind of go invent another square wheel, but hopefully we have some more rounded edges than those.
Oh, Aaron would love to talk to you, Miles.
I actually would.
Yeah. And quite honestly, you know, another thing that bugged me with too, and I just noticed, like I was looking at my package, I got the wrong address on the pip package. I'm going to fix that here soon. You know, if there's concerns or like, hey, how do I do something, you know, make an issue or being on the traffic service side and or just a Autest side, and how do I say something so I can add those examples into documentation, right?
I'll go file an issue right now.
Go ahead, just file it and then give it to me. So it's like, how do I do something so we can start making, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to solve the problem tomorrow, but at least I have a history where I want to go through documentation saying, well, what do I need to add to documentation to help make it easier for everyone? And then we can basically sort of knock each one of those pieces off, but at least we're tracking it.
Anyway, Aaron, if you could get the CARP test working again, that would actually be good for us.
It would.
Well, when we plan to move over to parent selection too, so it'd be nice to have some parent selection tests.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think Aaron should
plug and build would be great.
Yeah, get the CARP stuff working again, and then work with Miles to get parent selection tests working. I think that would be a great plan.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're presenting next, Alan. Do you want to get
All
your
right,
slides
let's see
up?
if I can make this work.
Yeah, so if Alan gets ready, just because we were talking about Autest stuff a little bit, small pet peeve of mine is our current automake builds at the moment are sort of messy. What I would like to propose, at least as a low-hanging fruit, is that we seem to have a lot of stuff that we don't know if it even builds anymore or cares about. It would be nice if we could start burning with fire these configuration options that don't have any value.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of one? I'm just getting curious.
Like what
transparency.
Event engine do we use?
What?
What event engine do we use? Do we still support all those versions of XML engines right now?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
All right. Can you guys see this?
Yeah. For some reason, no, I can't see it just says solid wall of code is started sharing screen.
I see
something that says
AMC
text
corner.
I can see it. I don't know if I have it. I see the entire thing, but.
Okay.
And like at the top, there's a whole bunch of